Speaking with Lacey Biles, he's the Deputy Director of the NRA-ILA State and Local Affairs Division. Lacey, thanks for being with us. A few things post-election to talk about. First of all, in a few states here, we had a right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment passed in Idaho, Nebraska, and Kentucky. Good news for hunters and sportsmen out there. Tell us what happened in these states.
Absolutely. Although we did suffer some losses adding some anti-gun and anti-hunting lawmakers on both federal and state level, we did see some big wins on these constitutional amendments, which will protect sportsmen well into the future. As you said, Kentucky, Idaho, and Nebraska, ranging from 74% to 84% of the vote, soundly supported. Most Americans still recognize the great importance that our hunting heritage plays, both from a conservation standpoint. Many of the wild lands in this country are because of that, and it was great to see the voters in these three states sound that off.
And I was speaking yesterday, Lacey, with Senator Reiser in Louisiana about an amendment that passed there, and I asked him a question. I'm asking you the same thing. Why is it important to pass these amendments to protect things like that? If there's no threat or anything immediately, why do you say it's important to do this?
Well, Louisiana was somewhat of a unique situation given the Louisiana Supreme Court ruled against, basically a standard of review. So they put the lowest standard of review for the right to bear arms. It was great to see strict scrutiny applied, making it a fundamental right, the right to bear arms, which it should be. For the right to hunt and fish constitutional amendments, we often hear, especially from HSUS, it's a solution in search of a problem. Well, it's funny that, they go out against, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars against the right to hunt and fish in Arizona, and yet they say it's a solution in search of a problem. They work on the fringes. They try to erode the hunting heritage. They'll go into states in California. They just ended hunting bear and bobcat using dogs, which is a tradition out there. They attack all these fringe hunting things that a small number of hunters participate in, and they have a goal of ending hunting permanently. Plenty of quotes from their current president and CEO, Wayne Pacelli, on that matter.
So what I said couldn't be further from the truth, and trying to make a point there. A lot of hunters and sportsmen they're not as politically active, and they don't see an active threat right out in front of them, but the threats are all over the place, so it's of vital importance, I guess, to have these amendments passed in as many places as we can.
Absolutely, and in Kentucky and Idaho and Nebraska, all three solid hunting states, and you could never imagine that that would come to an end as of right now. But, it might be 10 years down the road, it might be 20. But we're going to enshrine, this great heritage into the constitutions and protect these in perpetuity.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to Senator Reiser yesterday, you know what? It's good for us to be on the offensive, not on the defensive, waiting for an attack to come. And I'll tell you what, Lacey, you couldn't be more right. Places like HSUS, they are using the courts more and more. If they can't get something done legislatively, they'll go to the courts. They'll go anywhere they can to attack the rights that we have. I'm speaking with Lacey Biles. He's Deputy Director of the NRA-ILA State and Local Affairs Division. So in other states, Lacey, where these didn't pass, is this something that you would suggest folks who are politically active there to maybe look at a similar kind of legislation in their state for hunting and fishing?
Absolutely. We're reviewing states where we're going to push these things for the next session. We look at a number of factors, and the key is we want meaningful language. In the past, there have been efforts where it's simply you have the right to hunt and fish pursuant to laws and regulations. Well, what we found is HSUS and other groups are pretty sophisticated with their hundreds of attorneys on staff where it's too vague. So it might be 20 years down the road where it goes before a court and they could erode, hunting as a preferred method, for an example. They're using contraception, of all things, in certain test forests around the country, giving pelletized food to, say, deer populations. They're trying to take away the argument that, hunters control the populations and help the biologists. And again, it sounds crazy right now, but there are test cases going on as we speak.
Yeah, and you see some of these states out there, you mentioned California, where this stuff they'll try do just about anything. I know they've been attacking traditional ammunition in a lot of places, and anywhere they can go to attack things like hunting, they will go there.
Exactly, and a couple of core tenets, in the model language we support. One, protecting traditional methods, so rifles, shotguns, muzzle loaders, archery. Archery is one thing that they attack often. Calling it barbaric, and they'll show an emotional picture of a deer wounded, which again, archery is very humane. It's a great tradition and heritage in this country, and we're protecting all of these things in the language. We're making hunting a preferred means. It has been for a century, and we want to see this continue well into the future.
And as we know, hunters and sportsmen are the greatest conservationists out there in the lands all over the country. Lacey, one last thing before we let you go. Also, interesting amendment passed in Alabama. Tell us about that one.
Absolutely, it's Forever Wild. It's a unique program. Alabama does not have a great deal of public land, especially when compared to some western states. A lot of times these days, that's hunters' only opportunity is to hunt on public land. This is a program that takes royalties from natural gas. They acquire public land. I think it's 227,000 acres. As of now, 96% of it, is open to public hunting. And it's a great resource for the citizens of Alabama to get out and enjoy the outdoors.
Awesome. Lacey Biles, he's Deputy Director of NRA ILA State and Local Affairs. Lacey, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for the work you do every day now in the state and local division there to protect our rights to hunt, fish, and to enjoy our Second Amendment rights. And thank you for being on NRA News.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.